Hello students, Sairam. I welcome you all to the part 4 of chapter number 4, sorting materials into groups. In previous session, we have seen the properties of materials, and that properties are appearance and hardness. Based on the appearance, we sorted materials into two categories as shiny or lustrous materials or non-shiny or non-lustrous materials. And example of lustrous materials are mostly metals, and they are gold, silver, diamond, iron, copper and aluminium. Then examples of non-shiny or non-lustrous materials are wood, plastic, etc. Then on the basis of hardness of the materials, we divided them into two categories. In that, we divided materials into materials which are difficult to compress and scratch are called as hard materials. For example, iron, stone, etc. are the hard materials. Materials which can be compressed or scratched easily are called soft materials. An example of soft materials are sponge, cotton, etc. Now, let's begin with today's topic. Children, water is very important for our body. As we all know, without water, there is no life. We use water for different purposes like drinking, cooking, washing clothes and utensils, and for many purposes we use water. As a whole, water is very important for our life. In summers, have you tried to make lemon juice at home? To make this, you have to add salt and sugar in water. Then you have to stir the solution or the juice. You will see that within a few minutes, sugar and salt disappears in water. That means salt and sugar are easily dissolved in water. Like this, if we add different things like lemon juice, medicine, vinegar, fruit salt, they dissolve in water easily. That's why we call water as the universal solvent. That means many things can be easily dissolved in water. As mostly here, one question comes in our mind. Does water dissolve everything? Let's find answer of this question. So we'll begin with solubility. What is solubility, children? Solubility is the property of material to dissolve in a liquid is called its solubility. In this, we'll study first solubility of solids. Substances or materials that can be easily dissolved in liquid upon stirring are called soluble substances, whereas substances that cannot dissolve no matter how much we stir them in liquid are called as insoluble substances. If we add salt and sugar in water, they dissolve in water easily. Here, sugar and salt are soluble substances as they dissolve in water. If we add chalk powder in water and stir the solution, we will observe that chalk powder settles at the bottom of the glass. That means chalk powder does not dissolve in water. Here, chalk powder is an insoluble substance. Similarly, if we add sawdust in water and stir the solution continuously, we will see that it will not dissolve in water. Therefore, we can say that sawdust is also an insoluble substance. Here, the chalk powder and sawdust are the solids which are not soluble in water. Next, we'll see the solubility of liquids. Liquids which dissolve in another liquids are called miscible liquids. If we squeeze lemon in water, we will get lemon juice. That means your lemon juice dissolve in water, which is an example of solubility of liquid in liquids. Similarly, if we add vinegar or liquid medicine in water, they get easily dissolved in water. Vinegar and liquid medicines are Example of miscible liquids. Next, liquids which do not mix in another liquid and form a separate layer are termed as non-miscible liquids or immiscible liquids. For example, if you will take water and in that if you will add few drops of oil, you will see that after stirring the solution, oil does not get dissolved in the water. It floats on water, or we can say that it forms a separate layer on the water. So, your solution formed after mixing of water and oil is an immiscible solution. If we add kerosene or petrol in water, they will not dissolve in water and they will form a separate layer on the water. That means kerosene and petrol, which are liquid, are immiscible in water, or we call them as immiscible liquids. Next is the solubility of gases. Like solids and liquids, some gases are also soluble in liquids. Let's see which gases can dissolve in water. Some gases are soluble in water, whereas others are not. Gases such as oxygen, carbon dioxide, and ammonia are slightly dissolved in water. Have you opened the bottle of the cold drink? You will observe that some bubbles comes out as soon as we open the bottle of some cold drinks. Have you asked yourself why these bubbles comes out as soon as we open the bottle of the cold drink? These bubbles are carbon dioxide gas which is dissolved in the cold drinks. So this is an example of gas which is dissolved in a liquid. In seawater or in river, oxygen gas is dissolved in the water. This is the reason for the survival of animals and plants that live in the water. So children, we will move on to our next topic, that is float or sink. We see different materials around us. Do all materials float in water? Now we will see the concept behind a material that floats or sinks in water. Here I have taken few materials and I am going to immerse them in water. Let's see what will happen now. Few objects like log of wood, ball are floating in water, and the objects like coin, key, stones will sink in the water. And the reason behind this is the density. What is density, children? Mass per unit volume of a substance is called its density. Now we will see density in detail. Log of wood floats in water because of the density of log of wood is less than that of the density of water. What is the meaning of density over here, children? If we will take 1 unit volume of wood and 1 unit volume of water, and now if we will compare the mass present in the unit volume of wood to the mass present in the unit volume of water. From this image which is shown on the screen, it is clear that wood is having less mass present in unit volume than the water. This is the reason wood floats in water. Or in other words, we can say that if an object is less denser or less heavier than the water, then that object floats in the water. Similarly, in case of keys, key sinks in water because the density of key is more than the density of water, or we can say that weight of the key is more than that of the water. If we'll take unit volume of key and unit volume of water, then we will observe that mass of 1 unit volume of key is more than the mass of 1 unit volume of water. Or in other words, we can say that if an object is more denser than the water, it will sink in the water when it is placed in water. Now we'll try to understand the concept of floating or sinking of an object with few more examples. A heavy object, and if we place that object in water, it will sink in water as it is heavier than or denser than the water. Similarly, if we will take a lighter object like feather, which is shown here, and if we will put that in water, we will see that it will float as its density or its weight is less than that of the weight of water. And this is the reason that feather will float in the water. Thus, we can classify substances on the basis of their property of floating or sinking in the water. In other words, on the basis of their density. From this, we can conclude that if the density of an object is greater than the density of water, then the object will sink in water. And if the density of object is less than that of the density of water, then the object will float in the water. Now children, here we are going to see a poem, and the title of the poem is Why, Oh Why? A wooden boat in water will float, but a needle will sink. Why does this happen? Let me think. An iron ship will also float, though it's much heavier than my boat. But a needle, light as a leaf, thin as a pin, will sink right in. Why does this happen? Let me think. Children, this is the poem written by Miscible. Here children, in this poem, the poet is describing a child which is asking questions to himself, that an iron nail sink in water, but the ship which is made from iron floats in water. What is the reason? And here reason is a ship is made up of iron, floats in sea because density of ship, that is mass or volume of ship, is less than that of water. Here, though the density of iron is more than water, hollowness of ship makes its volume larger. Hence, the density of ship is lower than that of the water. Children, here as the density is the reason behind that the iron nail sink in the water, but the ship which is made from iron floats in water. Now next we'll see an interesting fact regarding Dead Sea. All oceans and seas have salty water. The saltiest of all is the Dead Sea. How salty? Imagine 300 grams of salt in 1 liter of water. Would you be able to even taste such salty water? It would be very bitter. Interestingly, even if a person does not know how to swim, she or he would not drown in this sea. She or he will float in water as if lying down on it. This is because of high concentration of salt. The water is much denser than the plain fresh water, meaning is that our body weight is lighter because of the salt present in this Dead Sea, which causes us to float on it. Up to now, we have studied about the properties of materials, and that properties are appearance, hardness, solubility in water, density, or objects may float or sink in water. The last property, transparency, we will see in our next coming session. Till now, goodbye children.